Hey guys, Megan here from Homestead and the blog nanoscamade.com, and I have got a freezer full of big game, and I have got to start making recipes to help move that along before more come in to take its place. If you have a big freezer full of wild game like we do, stick around, this recipe was made for you. If you do not, as you're making this recipe, instead of using elk or deer or bear or whatever big game that I say to use, just use beef or pork, whichever you like, and actually a mix of beef and pork would be really good in this recipe. So Italian wedding soup is one of my favorites. It's like a very warm, comforting, it's incredibly hearty, and it's just packed full of fresh vegetables and herbs, and it's just a really good soup to have on hand. Now I have included a way to make this in an Instant Pot. If you have an Instant Pot like most people do these days, we just got ours this fall. But Instant Pot is a really great way to make this if you want to just like have it done really fast. I like to make mine in a Dutch oven on the stovetop when I have time, so that's how I'm making it today. But I do have on my blog an adaptation for exactly like what to set your Instant Pot to. Now, if you have a special diet that you're following, if you're keto or gluten-free or something along those lines, I also have different ways to adapt the recipe to that diet too. Because in my house, we typically try to not eat gluten. Some of us have reactions with it. So I used oatmeal instead of breadcrumbs in this recipe, but lots of flexibility. You can literally make this any way you want it. So what we are gonna need to do is we're first gonna dice up some vegetables. To make this soup, we're gonna need 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a Dutch oven, and we're gonna start that on medium heat until it begins to kind of very lightly smoke. I want it to be nice and hot so that we can saute our vegetables. We're going to dice a large yellow onion, chop 2 celery stalks, peel and chop 2 carrots, 1 peeled russet potato chopped into small pieces, 1 whole zucchini, and I leave the skin on my zucchinis. And we're going to have a tablespoon of fresh garlic, which for me, it ends up being about 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. I'm going to use 10 cups of chicken stock. I am using frozen stock that I had in my freezer that we had made, but you can always just use the boxes or the cans of stock. We're going to need a can of diced tomatoes, 1 small can. And then we're going to add a pound of chicken breast. I went ahead and cooked my chicken breast the other day, and I've got it chopped, but you could also shred a deli-style chicken in your fridge. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning and then salt and pepper to taste. Plus we're going to need 1 recipe for venison meatballs and then a handful of fresh chopped parsley. Okay, so now on to the fun part. We're going to make our meatballs. I am using ground elk for my meatballs, and I am doubling this because my family, I've got 3 growing boys, we just eat a lot, and I wanted some leftovers too. So I am using 2 pounds of ground elk, a half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, salt and pepper to taste, 2 cups of Parmesan cheese, and then 2 cups of oatmeal, and 2 eggs. I almost forgot to tell you about the eggs. Throw 2 eggs in there. So I'm going to add all of this to the bowl of my stand mixer, and I'm just going to mix it up until it has a really well incorporated texture. Next, I'm going to make meatballs. The meatballs are going to be really small, think bite-sized. So if I were going to apply a measurement to this, I'd probably say about a half a tablespoon. When I made my meatballs, first I did it the traditional way where I dropped the uncooked meatballs into the soup like a dumpling. And I watched it cook. After 10 minutes, they were fully cooked. I tried one, it was delicious. It had a really nice, soft texture, but it was ugly. So I experimented, and with the second half, I browned them in a cast iron skillet with some olive oil. Now, the flavor was really good on the ones that I browned, and the way that it looked was beautiful. Those are the ones that I chose to add in my pictures when I made this blog post. But, so I had my husband, he tried it with me, and we both agreed that even though the ones that were dropped directly into the soup uncooked were ugly, they definitely had the better flavor and texture. So that's how I would recommend doing it, but play around with it if you want to. These meatballs are very handy. You could use them in spaghetti and meatballs. You could use them in a minestrone soup. You could use it ground up in a lasagna. I mean, this is just a really versatile, basic meatball, like Italian meat style recipe. So now if you're going to make this recipe in your Instant Pot, what you're going to do is you are going to saute the vegetables on the saute setting just like normal. And then you're going to add all of the other ingredients in, including the uncooked meatballs, and you're going to cook it on the soup setting for your machine. So on my machine, it's gonna take about 10 minutes to pressurize and heat up, and then about another 30 to cook, but they could vary. So just follow the directions on your machine for a soup. If you're going to make this in a Dutch oven like I am today, first I'm sauteing the vegetables, softening them until the onions look a little bit translucent, and then I'm going to add in the chicken stock, the Italian seasoning, the tomatoes, and then I'm gonna let that simmer for about 10 minutes until the potatoes are cooked. After that, then I add in my uncooked meatballs, or you can saute your meatballs first. Like I said, this is a very versatile recipe. We're gonna let it cook for about 10 to 30 minutes. Technically in 10 minutes, the meatballs are ready to eat. I found that it tasted better the longer that it sat on the stove. Everything just like really broke down and married. I hope that you try this recipe. If you do try it, please leave me a rating on my blog post at nanoscamate.com. If you take a picture of it, tag me on Instagram, or just let me know. And if you have any questions, reach out, because I love talking about food, wild game, all of those things. And if you have any recipes that you'd like to see me do, I'm always open to ideas. Please comment on this video, like it, share it, save it. Follow my YouTube channel for more healthy recipes and gardening tips. And have an awesome day.